Congratulations, you have reached the last video tutorial for the Scrap Yarn Hoodie pattern series. I am so excited. We are almost there. I really hope that if you have gotten this far, you've been sharing your journey with me either on social media using the hashtag Scrap Yarn Hoodie, or if you're a little bit shy, feel free to always reach out to me via the email in your pattern. I'd love to see how you're progressing. And of course, if you have reached this video and you're like, what are we even talking about here? Hop back quickly to the intro video to orient yourself a little bit, because this has been a fantastic series. It's such an exciting pattern, and I am so thrilled that we're closing it out today. You may notice a little bit of a layout change. I have switched it up and taken over my kitchen so we can give you a really gorgeous view from above of what we're doing today, which is compiling all of our final pieces. And I think it's really important to be able to see it in two ways, since the view that you're going to get up here is also going to be the view that you're going to see in your pattern for how to construct everything. So we have two views here to do our final seaming. At this point, if you've reached this video, here's what you should have. At this point, you should have completed two body pieces. So I have one here and then another one here, and these are both the size medium. And then we have our ribbing, which I'm going to attach today as well, because that should be joined after you join the two main body pieces together. Then we're going to add our two sleeves. So there's one, here's another, and then lastly we are going to join our absolutely gorgeous hood, and this is the not quite as wide version of the hood. We're going to be doing the same slip stitch that we've been doing kind of this entire time to join these together. You're going to need some yarn for seaming, your size 5 hook, and then I do think it's helpful if you have some stitch markers to help guide what you're doing. You should recognize from your pattern that we do have on each of the body pieces something that is going to extend from one side to another, and that is this little guy that's poking out here. You may notice on this body piece of mine, I have an empty space. That's because I made all of the hem diamonds in pairs, and there's actually an odd number. So this needs to go in here. I'll do that as I go, but that's something you don't need to do. Both of these sides have this nice blue diamond on this side that's going to extend from one side to the other and help us close this, and then this goes under the underarm. So if I actually fold this up, this will be easier to do. And then I'm going to fold this half so that we can start to see where we line up here. So if I look at this guy will then attach here, and everything comes down really nicely. So this goes here, this here, this here, this here, this here. You should notice that these lining up of the pattern pieces look exactly like what you have in your pattern, guiding you through how you join everything. So by this point where you're doing the seaming of all of the final garments, you should be really familiar with this, as we did this first with the sleeves and then with the body pieces and then with the hood, and now it's joining everything together. As with all of our seaming, we are going to do it with right sides together. Now that we've seen where these all go, I'm going to flip this on top here. I'm going to use my handy dandy stitch markers to remind me where everything is going. Now, if you see the inside of this and you're like, that is a lot of ends, it absolutely is. I'm someone who the very last thing I'm going to do is weave in ends, just because I would rather have the option of adjusting at different points. So if you decide that maybe you want a different size or something like that, I find having the ends out allows you to switch things around more easily. As with all of the seaming in this entire pattern, there's only one point where you aren't doing a full kind of half diamond to half diamond lineup, and that's on the ribbing. And then there's one point where we're joining the body to the sleeves that I'll walk you through, and that's why we have this video. But otherwise, it's a very even joining of these different diamonds throughout the entire pattern. So I hope that that has been something that you have found easy and, hopefully enjoyable at the same time. I have all of my kind of major points lined up, and I'm just going to hop in and do the thing. So we're going to start up here with this seam. The usual, I have a slip knot, and then I'm just going to start doing a slip stitch through every space. And I'm going to remove these as I go. You should be very familiar with this joining methodology by this point. And I hope you like it. I do. I find it really easy. Okay, so we're just going to go all the way down here. It's really easy to see at this point if you seamed everything the right way, because you'll see all of your wrong sides are facing up. You'll see all of your ends. And as with all of our other times where we're doing this kind of seaming, after doing the first little piece, I always like to open it up so that I'm making sure it looks like we're seaming the right way. Sure enough, there we go. And I know you probably saw this and were like, that looks like a little bit of a unusual geometry, but see, it works so nicely there. It's almost like a little gusset under the sleeve, fun fact, and that will join with your sleeve beautifully. So we're going to keep going here. That looks really good. And then I'm going to just probably fast forward this for you. I have reached the last seam that I'm going to be doing down the side, and this will in effect bring the sides together like we would expect in a sweatshirt. And with that, we have our first full side. I do have this last little piece that I need to add in here. So you open it to the side, you can now see where this piece was on one side and is now on both. And then this nice seam runs all the way down the center here. And I was even able to add my little extra diamond on really easily, because now these basically join at the bottom. So when I fold it to the side, because that's the way your hoodie is going to fit, you now get this really lovely, almost curved side seam that's going to look really beautiful once we add the ribbing and the sleeves on. We are fully connected now, so it's not going to be quite as easy to see where these come together on this side, since I'm going to have the other side of the garment underneath. But again, you see it lines up really nicely here to here, here, and then these will close to form that side. But again, since we're seaming it together, we have to turn it inside out to get right sides together. And then we're going to line it back up one more time here. It's coming together so nicely. And then add all of our stitch markers back in just so we can see where all of those points are. Another way I do this sometimes is I'll just grab this tail, since I have it, pull it through the end, and then just tie a nice little knot here. So that keeps those 2 points together. When I go at the end and weave in all the ends, it'll just go away. So start here again. I think I'm going to change away from the blue because it feels a little bit too conspicuous. And I'm going to switch to a little peach and do this one more time. This time I think I'll start at the bottom, because you could if you would like. A note here, regardless of the size of your garment, you're going to find that this seams together the same way. You're always going to have lining up side to side, and you're always going to have this little blue gusset friend. I just made it in blue because it's very easy to see it. It does not have to be blue. My cat is trying to catch a fly behind me. It's almost there. Okay, and we are done with that side. Here we are. We have a completed bottom. So from one side, looks like this, and then the other side, it looks like this. And see how these just sit so perfectly here on the sides? Yeah, that looks really, really nice. And yours may be a little bit wider, yours may be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, a little bit narrower. It's all going to come together in the same way, which is one of the beautiful things about this pattern is you can really adjust it to fit you. So I hope it's fitting beautifully. And we are ready for some ribbing. Now we're going to attach our bottom ribbing. And the reason why we did this after we joined the two sides is because we want to be able to distribute this as evenly as possible. And I think this is the easiest way to do it without perfectly measuring everything, which you do not have to do. Okay, so now that we have one big circle of a garment, you want to know where your sides are. So I'm just going to do some sort of little clippy guy to show where my sides are. So I have one here and I have one here. And then I have my ribbing. So the ribbing is made to your measurements. Why is that? It's because ribbing is one thing that how it fits you, where it's kind of going to hit, all of those things are very personal. And no matter how many people I talk to about this, everyone had a different opinion on basically how they want it to sit. So this is a slip stitch rib. There's an entire video on that I'll link below, but you have full instructions for this in your pattern. So this is one of the ways that we take something that is, yes, made to the pattern size, but having this be exactly the width you want it to be will help make sure that these two things come together to fit you as well as possible. The way we seam these together, it's the same way that we did the cuff, is going to be borrowed from sewing. Again, like a lot of the things are here, we're kind of easing things together. So the first thing we're going to do is pin either side of your ribbing together. I like for the join to be at the back or at the side. I'm choosing the side for this just because of the color. And then if you just fold it in half to get your other side, I'm just going to pin that, clip that to the other side. And if you notice, I have a lot of ribbing to fit with a decent amount of side here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the halfway point in the front, and then I'm going to fold and find the halfway point in the back. You could count your stitches, but I think this works pretty much the same. And then the way we're going to be distributing it will kind of make that not matter as much. Okay. So now I have the center points either side of my ribbing, and then I need the center point in my front. So my sides are lined up. So now I have 1, 2, okay, my center diamond here. I know it's 6 stitches across, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, right in here is going to be the midpoint of my front, and I'm just going to hook those two together like that. Same thing with the back. I have 7 diamonds on this one at the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to find the middle of that center diamond. And then I'm going to just clip these together. By doing this, I'm lining this up so that my ribbing, oh, this one just hopped out, gets really evenly distributed. Quick gut check before I start seaming. There's actually one thing I did wrong here. So first of all, you want to check that when you pull this out, nothing is twisted. And then the second thing is the rule we've been doing this entire time, which is right sides together. And guess what? I have a wrong side to the right side. All of these ends are poking out. So I actually need to flip everything over. So I'm going to check one more time. I should have all of my ends poking out. That looks great. Nothing is twisting. Now, if this makes you nervous to do this thing called easing, where we're kind of just going to match it up to make sure that at each point it's evenly distributed, you can do two things. The first is you can find a midway point again here. So I think that's a great place to start. So I can just kind of fold that, find another one. And then between here, we have 1, 2, 3.5 diamonds. So kind of here-ish, and do another pin. Another thing that you can do before you do this is you can do one round of single crochet on this edge here, because there are a few places where like this isn't fully grabbing, but I'm going to make sure these are touching when I do my easing around here. So you can kind of break it up a little bit further to make sure you're joining it as evenly as possible. You could even go as far as counting stitches and making sure that everything's perfectly evenly distributed, but there's a good amount of stretch and it should line up pretty nicely. And then you're going to start at one side and it's going to be doing the same thing as before, where we're just slip stitching around. And I try to have one stitch in every stitch of the diamonds from the body. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a 1-for-1 with every stitch of the ribbing. We've made it to our first little gut check, which is this stitch marker. So we are a quarter of the way through. So I think it's a good time to take a look, flip it over and see how it's looking. Oh, that looks so fabulous. Yeah, it really looks incredible. So this is a good thing to do every time you reach that section, because again, you want these to make sure they're held really tightly so that you're evenly distributing everything. So I'm going to keep doing exactly the same thing and I will meet you at the next marker. We've reached our halfway mark, so time for another little gut check to make sure. Okay, again, as our wrong sides facing out? Yes, they are. And when I flip this over, look at that gorgeous seaming. Okay, I have this guy's kind of poking through, but we can just, if you have something that's showing, just grab it with your hook and just pull it to the other side, and then weave in that in later. So hopefully you're feeling really confident about this. I'm gonna go ahead and finish all the way around and see you in a moment. Okay, a little drum roll here. We have made it all the way around. As you can see, we have a fully joined bit of ribbing. And then if I go like this from the outside, you see a lovely little line of slip stitches all the way around. And then the moment of truth, we turn it right side out and it looks gorgeous. Like, whoa, so gorgeous. It looks fantastic. So beautiful. Okay, so we have done the sides. We've done the bottom. The body is officially done now. Congratulations. Yay. So now it's time to add the sleeves and then the hood. With the dolman sleeve, the sleeve actually forms part of the neck. So you'll see that in just a moment as we line everything up. Time to join the sleeve. So I have it laid out again as you're going to see over and over in your pattern with how the diamonds come together. And again, we're going to have a fairly straightforward half of a diamond meeting up with another half of a diamond starting down here. In order to form the sleeve, we're going to do both the front and the back at the same time, but we are not going to seam the front and the back exactly in the same way. The difference is going to be with this top piece here and how it lines up to this pair of 3 little diamonds. On the front, this is going to close first on this side and then here on this side so that it gets a fairly narrow front of your neck. However, on the back, because we want to make sure there is enough space in your neck hole, we will only do it to 1/2 so that this extra piece becomes part of that back neck, allowing you to have the space to get it on and off really comfortably and to support the hood, which is going to be distributed a little bit more in the back and then the front. So again, we're going to start with right sides together, but this is going to be a little bit trickier because you're going to have a side underneath the piece that you're working with. So we first only want to be paying attention to these 2 top ones. This is really a place where you're going to want to make sure you have lots of seam markers. So right at the kind of widest point of this diamond, we're going to stitch a seam marker at the lowest point of the sleeve. And then also I can use my little cheat technique as well and just pull some extra little threads through here if I don't have tons of stitch markers. Okay, then get half to here. This should feel really easy to line up basically where you're at like the widest point, for example, on this one. On the underside, you're at the narrowest point of those 2 diamonds. So it should come together in a way that feels pretty natural. This last diamond and how it distributes between these 2 diamonds, it's just a half a side with another half a side. So it should feel pretty easy from that sense. However, this is our first time kind of going around a curve on the outside. So that may seem a little bit strange to you. I'm going to mark this all out like that. And then I'm going to open it up so that we can kind of see how everything lines up and it looks really good. So that is the front. And then I'll wait to pin the back. So let's just run a nice little slip stitch from the top to the bottom through this long seam that we have set up there. I've reached my first stitch marker, so I'm just going to check all of my seams are still on the inside. Yes, they are. Great. So I'm going to keep going to the next one. as you're going down, you may notice there's places where you have kind of 3 points coming together, but really you only want these 2 end ones to come in on this side here. So just make sure you're not creating extra space by stitching anything other than those very edge diamonds. To finish the joining of the front part of the sleeve with the front of the hoodie, we're going to go halfway down this kind of gusset diamond that splits the body, but only halfway, because then we are going to switch to the back of the sleeve and the back of the hoodie. So that is the final seam there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it right side out. And look how nice that looks. So we have that first full sleeve attached. And so if you're like, looks like it gathers a little bit in here, this is because this becomes your shoulder up here, and then this is your space for your arm to move, essentially. So there we have the sleeve now attached to the body. Let's focus in here as we get ready to pin our back sleeve to the back of our garment. So again, we've already done the front facing each other. It looks great. We've gone halfway through this blue diamond here. And then the way that we get to do front sides together, you take your body, turn it inside out, and then you take your sleeve and you basically tuck it into your body so that you can start joining like this. What we're going to do is we're going to start pinning from the bottom very close to what the front looks like until we get to the very top. So you have this half guy combined here. You then have this point lining up with this spot here. We have this point lining up with this little depression in the back here. And then for the stitch, we have this full diamond free and then half of the sleeve diamond free. So we want up to here and then one full piece of here free. So this guy to this here. And you'll be able to see this in your diagram really clearly. This is the only point where the back and the front are different is in this seaming, but then the seaming will make it so that your hood fits really well. So I'm just going to pull that through like that. So there we have at the top, unlike the front where only half of that diamond is free, this whole piece is, and you can see it because I have it done on this side already. And then we're just going to go through and slip this entire part here. So let me hop in and do that. Don't be afraid to double strand the yarn that you're using to do this final seaming, since it is pretty chunky seaming with heavy pieces. So 2 strands of yarn is not a bad idea. Okay, so we have finished that. We have the seaming on the back with these extra pieces on the top open, and then the seaming on the front where these diamonds are fully closed. And it looks so fantastic. Great time to just slip it on and see how it fits. Oh yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. There's quite a bit of space around the neck here, and that is going to be closed in just a moment when we add the hood, our final step. Quickly, before we jump into adding the hood, the very last step. Congratulations for getting this far. I am so proud of you, and I really hope that you're sharing this process with me. Again, using the hashtag #ScrappyYarnHoodie. And I'd love to know, which is your favorite part of making this? What has been your favorite thing? Just let me know in the comments below. I have a special place in my heart, I don't know, for all of the pieces. I can't even decide. So you'll have to let me know what your favorite is. I'm curious to see what is everyone's favorite part of making this pattern. Okay. So the hood. I have it filming from up here because I think, yeah, this is a good way to look at it. You can see the front is on this side, the back is on this side. They are not perfectly even. We have an extra half a diamond on the back on this part, and then here too. This is joined. It's not here because that is used by the hood. This is like I'm looking in the neck hole of the garment. And then we have our fabulous hood. So whether you chose to do an extra wide hood, which I love, or a little bit more of a regular hood, and actually I'll just toss this on so you see more what the regular hood looks like. When I'm making this, every time before I do the final border, always think that the extra wide hood is too wide. And then I put on the final border and then I go, oh, I really wish I would have done the extra wide hood. So I've now twice not done the extra wide hood, but I did do the extra wide hood on the very first one. So you can see a comparison of what that looks like to have the extra wide hood on there. I love the extra wide hood. It just gives it a little bit more of that fairy tale shape. And again, it will look slightly funky right before you put on the last border because you do have a little bit extra width on the sides, but it all smooths out once you do that first row of single crochet. And then even here, it looks a little funky because it's not attached. And this, how it attaches to the body actually does help shape where the hood distributes on your head. And you'll see that in just a moment as we add this all together. Okay, so we have our finished hood. I have my body inside out. And since we're doing right sides together, just like with our sleeve, we're going to take the hood and stick it inside, which is a little weird. This should feel familiar because it's just the same thing we did with the sleeve. So we're going to take our stitch marker to start. Very center front of the hood, and I'm going to match it up with the center front of the front of my hoodie. So you should have all of these diamonds kind of coming together right there. And again, you want the raw edge, not the lovely finished edge that you have done. So we're going to join those together right there. Put a stitch marker. And then we're going to start with the back as well, just kind of like we did with the ribbing on the hem. But this is going to go like one for one around. And you're going to see why we left this little extra space here. So I'm going to take a stitch marker. The center back forms a nice little point, and it's going to go right in the center back of the hood. And now if I just, without really doing anything, just kind of line it up, you're going to notice it just fits really nicely in here. You don't really have to do much easing. It's not hard to visualize at all. So when we go, okay, so from the center front, if I go out half a diamond to the next point, look, they connect. So this is where you can put your stitch marker. I'm just going to put a clip for ease here. And then if I follow along, another intersection, look how nicely that goes together. Now this is that extra piece that you left that you didn't seam. And then we have 2 points here. You're going to do the whole diamond together. They line up perfectly. So I'm going to line it up on the other side too. Again, even if I start from the center back, look, this first one lines up all the way really beautifully. And where our points meet, that's where it's going to seam together. And then if I look here, you might have where at your shoulder, like all of your points aren't perfectly matching, and that's okay. You can just kind of cinch them in at this point here. What this also does is it distributes the weight of the hood and where the hood is going to fall behind you. So that you get a really nice shape to it because there is more weight in the back of this hood. So we have it all lined up. You can see here, and we're going to start seaming it up. One thing about seaming the hood or even putting the finishing border on the hood, I don't like starting from the center just because I think you are more likely to see it at that point since it's such a small closure where all these different points are coming together. I think it's easier to start on a side. So I'm actually going to start on this side and then go around. This should be a 1-for-1. seaming all the way around. So let's take a look as we go. You should be able to find even spaces, just like you were seaming the rest of the garment together. This is not like how you're doing your ribbing where you're easing it in and it doesn't quite line up. This should line up really nicely. So if for some reason you're like, this isn't looking right, take a look back at your diagram because take a look back at the diagram in your pattern because it should seam up really, really nicely. So here you can see I have a little bit of extra bits of where these 3 diamonds come together on the shoulder. And rather than ignoring that, I'm actually distribute it around this last little piece. That just gives your shoulder a little bit more space. You don't have to, but you might find that that just kind of naturally happens, which every single time I've made this, it just ends up happening that I have a little bit more space between those top points of the diamonds at the shoulder. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so now I'm going to the next diamond. So now we've gone on to the very kind of front. We've left the shoulder. We're on the front. It's looking great. We're going 1 for 1 all the way around here. Look how beautifully those fine spots. Perfect, perfect. Okay. So I'm now to the center. I'm going to take this stitch marker out. And this is why you want to have your border there, because your border is really what reinforces that 2 diamonds meeting in the front. You can see I have the same thing here, and for just stability, I tie a little knot between them. But since you do have the border on the hood, that's a really great reinforcement of that seam there. And then by joining these all together, you're gonna have a really strong, nice seam around there. And this is, again, a great place to make sure your yarn is double-stranded and as strong as you want it to be, because these are gonna be some heavy piece joins here, okay? So now I've crossed to the other side and I have reached my shoulder. Can unpick that. And since I'm going the other way, I'm still going to kind of distribute a little bit of where those ends of the diamonds are to just give them a little bit more space before I join this side with this side. So that might mean, in order to do that, that you have to gather a few more of this side stitches into this piece, because you've used like 3 stitches to grab the ends of those diamonds, but that's okay. Okay, and I look like I've caught up because I did a couple where there were 2 stitches from this side and 1 over here. So we've gotten to the back piece. We've gotten across the shoulder that extends kind of from the front to the back. Now we are joining just the back pieces. Slip stitching. I think this is the only point in the entire garment where you actually do like a full like 1 diamond to 1 diamond full side rather than just like a short side. So mix it up at the end. Now I'm at the center back of the hood and the center back of the body, so you get kind of like a point party. There's 3 points on the body, 3 points on the hood that all come together. Ooh, almost there. If you've liked this tutorial, I think I forget to say it in each one, but make sure that you have liked this and you're subscribed so you don't miss the next pattern that we're going to release, because the next one's going to come out a lot faster than this one, since I've worked out all of the kinks in the how do I best, want to present a pattern and whatnot. So stay tuned for the next scrap yarn hoodie, which may or may not be kind of floral puffed motif. Okay, so go ahead, pull this through, and we have our finished hoodie. So here is what it should look like. I can just pull this through. Again, just double check, okay, all is facing the same direction. Moment of truth. I'm gonna pull everything the right way. So there you have a full completed scrap yarn hoodie. I'm wearing a size medium with full length sleeve. And see, we were a little skeptical about how this all came together. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I hope you love yours just as much. I'm sure you're gonna look amazing wearing it. I don't think I'm gonna take this off now for months. Be sweating in it all summer. It's gonna be great. Although actually, it's really not that toasty. Thank you so much for watching this scrap yarn hoodie pattern video tutorial series. I hope you have had just as much fun making this pattern and watching these videos as I have had making them and getting this all together. I could not have done it without your help, without your feedback, with your notes about size and fit, which were taken into account very much for the final garments. Again, my name is Rebecca. I can't wait to see you again soon. And of course, I can't wait to see all of your scrap yarn hoodies. Thanks for watching.